Right, not to worry about the
don't worry about it.
Right, so we're here in a pub. We're talking to two of the UK's most experts on dealing with gas and electric.
Really? Who's that?
I'll leave it to you two to explain.
I'm Kevin Moore, and that's
Paul Webster.
and today we'll talk about gas warrants, gas and electric.
We'll talk about how their application and mechanisms work, about things about how the likes of Panorama reported that these gas companies can apply for a warrant of entry, forced entry if necessary, to fit a pay-as-you-go meter. And you have to understand that those two entities are miles apart. There's a lot of information in between all that. The forced entry is for emergencies. If you're on holiday and somebody smells gas, you want somebody who has the authority to get into your property and fix that gas tap. Of course you do. These people have that authority. I'm not going to question that, but what they can't do is force entry for a monetary dispute, because the powers of entry is only in certain sections of a forced entry gas warrant, and that relates to pipes, fittings, escape of gas. It's nothing to do, you will not see that body of words in the monetary disputes and talking about pay-as-you-go meters. So therefore they're firing two different jurisdictions. Yes, they've got a statutory warrant to fit a pay-as-you-go meter. They're qualified, they're legally trained, they can fit that, but that requires your consent. It's a statutory warrant. It's two different jurisdictions, and that's what's been shown throughout. You can't explain it plainer than that, but then it brings up complications about why is this gas paid for, blah blah blah, and people want to start arguing about you've got to pay for this, and it's not about that. It's about understanding where this economy sprouts from, which is you, your back, your labour, and that's where you've got to start. You've got to go back to the basics, unlearn what you've been taught. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, we've also exposed as well that when you go to what you think is a magistrate's court building, which it is, it's a magistrate's court building, you're actually there in a private hearing, private capacity, because they're hired out by the utility companies, which have exposed on YouTube, exposed it via video, audio and visual, and I've actually seen the so-called alleged warrant with the utility company name at the bottom. Well, that can't be, it belongs to the court. So we've also exposed that when you go in, it's a justice of the peace, it's never a judge. It's a justice of the peace that's there for personal profit and gain, that sign these alleged warrants to force their entry into someone's house to fit a prepayment meter. So as Paul's already said, there's no legislation out there that you can force entry, because it's in the body of those words within the Acts that states, do we have that authority and do we have that jurisdiction to force entry? No, you don't. You can't do it. And I think
not for monetary.
Not for monetary dispute, but it's like everything. It's like Paul says, they have powers, they have rights. They can come to your door and say, I've come to fit a prepayment meter. You're within your rights to turn back and say, I don't consent. They can't force it upon you. But they do have a power to come into your property if they suspect a gas leak. And part of the 1954 Act, Warrants of Entry, I think it's section 2,
yeah.
It states emergency. So emergency to me is health and safety.
In that respect, if they turned up and spoke to you and they suspected that, you could allow them to inspect it and fix like to like, but you don't have to accept pay-as-you-go meter. That's voluntary, and that's where people get mixed up with jurisdictions and warrants, and these people have honed their skills to talk around everything. So you stick to the most basic, the most simple, what they can go in for and what the other warrant and the application on the pay-as-you-go meter is, which is voluntary. So once you separate that, they're all of a sudden, if you owe them money and they can prove that, go to a county court of equity, show it. I'll pay you what I owe you lawfully. You can't. You can't pay it, because then you're going into bankruptcies and paying bills. Do they stop bankruptcy? Does it carry on? Well, this stuff is meant to being a system that's meant to be generated by yourself, and it's been hijacked at some point by private corporations, and it's not by accident. You can't say it's by accident. If it was any other thing, if someday, if you saw the same lad every time you'd been robbed, if you saw the same lad's face and you knew who it was, you'd suspect there's something going on with that lad every time you get robbed. And at this moment in time, you can't look around and not say, we're not being robbed. On every level we're being robbed. You can pick and choose what you like.
Now, surely the media, the ITV, BBC, Channel 4, all that sort of thing, they must be putting the truth out. They must have used some of your lot's videos to show that you're telling the truth.
Well, they did.
In
their favour, on the panorama video that was done, the film a couple of months ago, they gave you the false perception to the public that if you don't pay, we're going to kick your door in.
They didn't tell you the truth, but they didn't lie.
But the videos that were actually published on that panorama documentary, I'm privy to 2 of those where they never got entry into that property, and they were showing you that if you don't pay up, they will kick your doors in.
They can break in, and
that was the public. That was the perception they get.
Can they lawfully break the door open?
Yes.
Yes.
Under certain circumstances.
And those are what we talked about earlier.
Pipes, fittings, escape of gas.
So to fit a prepayment meter, they can't lawfully break the door.
No.
If they did that, they would be breaking the law.
It's criminal.
Yeah. Because under the 86 Gas Act, like Paul says, it's a statutory
It's got to have a
requirement.
certain body of words in order for them to break into the property. It's got to involve a certain body of words which relates to health and safety issues involving pipes, fittings, escape of gas. Nothing to do with monetary. When you look at the monetary aspects of the Gas Act, you will not see the body of words rights of entry because they haven't got a right of entry to claim all the money.
When they do this then, and I know of certain cases that have gone to court and the judges or magistrates have said that you are wrong. Are the judges or magistrates correct in this?
No idea. It's just the judgment that they make, but they never provide evidence contrary to what is presented in front of them. The basics with the gas is, if you ask for a paper bill, you get a credit check that is drawn from a third party. If I owe somebody £100, am I going to give them a cheque to pay me back? Because that means this energy company is claiming I owe them this money, but they send me a cheque. Well, it sounds ridiculous, so I asked them, what do you want me to do with this? I can't do what it's designed to do under the bills of exchange, which is go to the post office, have it scanned, have it stamped, put in the cash drawer, the top part of the bill stamped and given as receipt.
Why can't you do that?
Because they don't accept it, they don't know it. They're not legally trained.
So you're saying that the post office do not understand the bills of
No,
exchange?
they can't.
The postmasters do. They understand it's a cheque, but they can't cash it. They know it's a cheque. The banks probably know it's a cheque, but they can't do it.
The banks don't have to, they're not obligated.
But the
There's nobody
postmaster
obligated.
does. It's been put before postmasters at the post office and they've said it's a cheque, but we can't cash it.
And how do you then settle this?
It's your
So
account.
I took control of the cheque and said, if Kevin owes me £200 and I owe you £200, he gives me a cheque, rather than cause anything other than hassle, I transfer my cheque to you, all bills paid.
Transferred by endorsement.
Transferred by endorsement. You are my agent. I'm not your customer, you my agent. Can you deal with this? You've sent me this cheque, nobody will accept it. Please do it so I can settle the account. And they refuse to accept it. Well, you say they refuse to accept it, they didn't accept the payment, they got the cheque.
Then you get into double dipping.
So it doesn't matter where they want to go now. People can keep asking me, can you prove this, can you prove it? Where is it in court? How can you do that when you're up against a system that says this is not right?
So what I would take from what you've been saying is, if it does go to court, usually the judge magistrates will break the law in favour of these big corporations.
Not in my case. Not in my case, they acted honourably.
But we've seen it in other cases.
They were very weak in my case. I had a magistrate ask me what a bill of exchange was, and before I could answer, the legal clerk turned and said, "Yes, ma'am, that's a legal remedy we don't deal with in this jurisdiction." Remedy is cure in that language. So he's just told the magistrate, whether she understood it or not, was I've offered a remedy. So then it goes before a district judge. They send a gas man in a boiler suit, talking about, with a letter that talks about disavoidance techniques gleaned from the internet and promissory notes. Never mentioned anything about any of that. So they're not engaging, so the judge adjourns it. Turns up again, nobody turns up. That's it, that's where it went.
So,
And judges don't like being messed about like that.
do you pay for your gas
I've not
in
been
the
able-
conventional method?
In the conventional method, no, because I've discovered that I'm not liable under certain circumstances. So I wanted to ask them this and present it to them and say, come on, look at this, I'm not liable for this. And they would not engage. So I could not settle my account under the Bills of Exchange Act, which is how it's set up to be. They denied me that aspect to do that. They wanted, this is what we accept. Well, that's not for you to say. I'm not your customer. You're my agent. You do as I tell you. And then they don't accept it. And then when you're going into court, because of how the system's set up, the courts it's already decided which party's going to be liable. And they're trying to issue a forced entry warrant. If you can stop that, it's got to go to county court because they want to get money from you. Where does it go? I can't go anywhere with it.
One of the questions I constantly get asked is, if you don't pay, how can the corporation that's providing you the gas pay for it?
Because they get revenue for both commercial and non-commercial agreements from the trust accounts that run this economy.
We think it's from the Treasury, don't we? We can't prove it.
Which is what is based on the backs of the labour of this country. You can then start talking about assets being stripped and no skills. You know, we've got PhDs who are stacking shelves and things like that. There's a lot of stuff going on.
One of the things I'm sure everyone would like to know is, have you been cut off?
Never.
So you've accepted by endorsement their bill,
Yeah.
and they've accepted that as payment.
Well, they kept the cheque but ignored everything I ever said to them. And then even just completely disrespected the district judge who was willing to sort everything out there and then, including payments.
When was the last time you actually paid for gas in the conventional method?
I forget.
More than a year ago?
Yes. Okay. But that doesn't mean to say I've not tried to settle the account.
No, what I'm saying is people would want to know how long it's been.
I challenged it.
Yeah.
The time I challenged it was when they messed up the third of 3 payment plans. I was paying £60 a month direct debit. I was going through a lot with the property, and I thought I can't take anything else on, so I was paying £6 a month. All of a sudden it dropped to £5 a month when I realised, but nobody told me. Then it hit me with this bill. And I said, oh, blah blah blah, so I set up a payment plan. Oh, this hasn't happened. Somebody else comes along and says, oh, you can pay £30 every 2 weeks. Well, that's the same as what you wanted. Right, I'll do that. Paid it, you've not paid this month. I went, right, I've had enough. Send me a paper.
See, the only time you see that bill as well, isn't it? When you're paying by direct debit, you never see the joint gyro credit check. The only time you see the joint gyro credit check is when you don't pay by direct debit.
You can see what people want to say is a bank gyro, and sometimes these energy companies, as Kevin will vouch for, they've started to send out bank gyros attached. Well, that means it's an invoice, so they're presuming that you are a commercial property. So it's all commerce. Everything is commerce. And when people wake up and realise that if I can't walk past B&Q and somebody drag me and say buy an hammer and some nails, they can go, oh, we've got some hammers, we've got some nails, but they can't do anything about it. Yeah, this is what these courts and speech marks are doing.
Now, I must put a disclaimer in here that anyone listening shouldn't try this method until they have absolutely researched it till their eyes bleed.
I haven't got I'm in the street. I haven't got a clue, mate, because everything what I've done came my way, and I had to react to it and do what I did when I did it, and I stand by those results because that's what I did.
Do you still get a bill?
Yeah.
And you just...
I can't do anything with it. They ignored me, so I decided to ignore them. I rang the head office to speak to the legal team. I couldn't, but I rang back and they told me they were reviewing my accounts as we spoke and they'd be in touch. And I could show then that the Bill of Exchange and the Consumer Credit Act doesn't apply to a non-commercial agreement, but they never got in touch, and that was July 2014. I can't do anything more, and I'm not keep wasting my energy chasing these people who can't react to you because they can't prove anything. It's just all about people being scared and being fearful. It's, you know, and you can't give that to people. It came to me, I dealt with it or I didn't, you know, and I had to deal with it.
So it would seem that they rely on the fear factor to get you to pay.
More than that, yeah, I would say so.
But at the start, you've got to keep tapping that warrant all the time because the giveaway is at the top in the local justice area of.
But people get bogged down in saying you can't force entry. All they've got to do is say, yes we can, yes we can, yes we can.
Until you show in the body
Until
of
you
words.
show why not. And the judge can legally sit under that. Yes they can, yes it's
So
ridiculous how it works.
So it's not about saying that you can't force entry, it's about showing them that they can force entry, but only under certain circumstances.
I had one last week, Romford. Helped her out in court, the warrant was withdrawn in the court.
Did you actually travel down to Rome?
No, it was all done over the phone. Okay. Before Christmas the warrant was withdrawn, but I was under the belief that they'd moved into the property, but they said that they alleged that they'd used £1,500 in about 3 months. Well, that's impossible. You can't use that amount of energy in 3 months. I've seen it, and I think that they passed the debt from the existing occupier onto the present occupier and passed the debt on. That does happen, and it's unlawful. So we're now just alleged £6,000 now, and they went to court. She went to court. They refused to look at her paperwork. They refused to look at the gas safe certificate, and it was a justice of the peace again that said no, I'm awarding the warrant, and they awarded the warrant. And then it was 3 days ago the day that they should have turned up in the morning, a G4S guy turned up and took a photo of a door. So they were seeing what lock she had. Was it a composite door? And how they're going to pop the lock. She confronted them and said, what are you doing? Well, we're not coming today, we haven't got enough staff. That was in the morning. In the afternoon they turned up. And that's when she phoned me. And when they phoned me up, they'd already popped the lock. But now they were waiting for a supervisor to come, which was a sergeant. The WPC, the WPC didn't want nothing to do with me. And then I confronted the sergeant and I told him that you don't have the power and you don't have the jurisdiction. It's a civil matter.
Did they facilitate?
Yeah, it was quite funny. Well, it wasn't funny for the occupier, but it was funny from where I was at because, cut the long story short, the sergeant gave the key.
The red key
to the gas agent who refused to force entry because it's not in his remit.
That sounds like aiding and abetting a criminal offence.
Yes. Then, when he refused, he gave it to the locksmith. But the locksmith's only allowed to pop the lock, he can't go beyond the lock. It's only the agent that then has to come through the door, not the gas agent, not the locksmith. So he gave the red key to the locksmith. He refused because it's not in his remit. And his words were health and safety, where if anything happens I'm not covered, which is what I was saying to the sergeant at the start. Have they done a risk assessment on the health and safety? to check the vulnerability of this household while it was done visually. Well, visually is not good enough. It has to be done under health and safety. It has to be written down because it can be held. It's law. Health and safety is probably one of the powerful ones because you can actually shut a factory down under health and safety. You can actually play. It's probably one of the most powerful ones because it's causing loss, life or injury or anything like that. Didn't want to know, you see, and it got to a point where he said, "Well, we're not going to force entry, but we're going to go back to the court." And I said, "That's fair enough, but you must let the occupier know you're going back to court under human rights. She has the right then to challenge the jurisdiction and challenge the warrant. But you're alleging that you're going to force entry again." And his words,
forced entry couldn't be further apart.
And he said, "If I warn you now," he said, "if you, it's all audio this is, if you touch the gas agent next time, you verbally abuse them in any way, you will be arrested." And I just said, "Oh, will you now?" What?
Who will be?
The occupier or anybody that interferes with them. So it was the warrant, they walked away, they're going back again for another warrant. And that's where we are on that one. So the key is, you look at the warrant, and if it says in the local justice area, they're the ones, you need to phone up the court prior to them coming. We did it. Court had no knowledge of it, even though...
That's if you've not been able to stop it right at the court.
Yeah.
You know, because there are a lot of people now getting railroaded. You know, we know so many, and I can only say from my point of view, what I used was a bundle that somebody else used, is a bundle that somebody else has already used, and we're all at the same place. And we've all asked these people to work with us,
Contribute.
show this, show, look, this is right, boom, boom, boom. Well, they want to call us names and do things like this. This is ridiculous. It's going before district judges, who district judges do not like being messed about. You know, if you mess a district judge about, he's going to cut your balls off. You're not going to appear before me. How dare you? How dare you? These are respectful judges. That happened, and British Gas were honourable. They followed all the process, exactly what it's meant to be through the bills of exchange, issuing the cheque that they can't get access to balance your account. It's got to come to you. Can I go to the post office, have it scanned, stamped, put in the cash drawer to balance the account and a receipt? No, I can't, because the post office doesn't recognise it.
They recognise it as a cheque, that they cannot...
It has been recognised as a cheque.
So okay, then we'll go straight to the utility company.
And they're not interested,
Because
and they mess you about.
Everything revolves around the bills of
And
exchange.
then, if the only way, what they do is, if they can't get anything around pay-as-you-go meter, they've got to decide either can they blow you out the water with an argument in county court with equity, or should they run away? And if anybody's got them towards that argument of county court, they have to run away, because if they lose it, it's too much. British Gas, I think 2013, 2014, don't quote me, but they made £2.3 billion profit. Where's that coming from when they're only meant to collect commercial property interest? That's why we get paid through a joint gyro credit check. You're not liable, so you don't have to pay us. There you go, settle it with that. Oh, we don't accept that. Hang on, you've just given me that check. It starts driving people insane.
Do you think they work like the banks do, and they have an insurance policy, so even if you don't pay that money, they can still claim that money on an insurance policy?
Insurance policies are everything. European parliamentary directives state that these people must take insurance policies out, particularly with mortgages. There's an insurance policy for a mortgage. You pay it through your interest. It's the European Clean Hands Doctrine. That's where it is. People have got to unlearn what it is, because people think they're going and getting physical cash, and it's not there.
Now,
They've got to understand where that comes from.
Now I can confirm what you were saying earlier, that they do put other people's debts onto you, because that's what got me into this. We was happily paying the gas, well, not happily, we were paying the gas and electric, and then
Conforming.
we got a letter from a debt collector stating that we'd just moved in, not been there 6 months or so, stating that the previous owner had not paid a bill for £700, 47 odd amount. We thought, well, it's not to do with us, so we just ignored it. Then the next bill comes, and guess what? It's for £747, exactly the amount that they were chasing the previous occupiers for. At that point, we realised they had lumped the bill, the previous person's bill, onto us, and were trying to get it off us. So what in actual fact happened there, they got paid by the insurance company, so that bill was paid anyway. They were still trying to get it off us, and I bet you any money you like, they were still chasing the previous occupier for the same amount. So they were actually trying to get paid 3 times for the same amount.
The other thing as well with prepayment meters, which is important, they'll say, oh, we'll put the prepayment in to manage your budget. Well, if you run out your prepayment meter, technically they've cut you off. And the other one, which is proved and calculated, people that are actually on prepayment meters are probably £200 worse off a year to what someone is paying by direct debit.
Well, they're treating the pay-as-you-go meter as a commercial interest that has required that pay-as-you-go meter so that they can put through their books the exact amount of energy that they're using, but it's not a commercial agreement. So that in itself has got to ask questions, but you can't ask these questions, they're not interested in answering them.
And if there's people listening that don't believe what we're saying from the Consumer Credit Act, everything revolves around that as well on the Bills of Exchange. Consumer Credit Act section 123, paragraph 5, and it says we can discharge that as a negotiable instrument, not as a promissory note. Only the banks.
But in the section for negotiable instruments, when you get to number 5, it says this does not apply, because it tells you that you can't use negotiable instruments, but that is all commercial until you get to paragraph 5, which says it does not apply
to a non-commercial, and we are non-commercial.
And that you've got to start reading things how
it's written, isn't it?
It's what's not there. It's the same with council tax. They talk about dwellings, which are all properties. So they're talking about rateable properties, which are commercial, and non-rateable, which is non-commercial. But in their acts, they're telling you what they're charging the council tax for. Go and read it. Go and read it. They're charging you for running a commercial property. If you don't tell them, they're not doing nothing legally wrong, nothing at all.
It's just like with your car, where your taxis used to say PLG, private light goods. They've turned the car into a commercial vehicle by you accepting that it's private light goods.
But you have a driver's licence. What is a driver? A driver is a taxi driver, bus driver, van driver, delivery driver. Anybody using the public roads for monetary gain. So that is what you need a driver's licence for. If you present your driver's licence to somebody, you are stating I'm using the road for monetary gain. That's not free man of the land stuff. That is basic commerce. This is, yes, I'm working. That's what you're stating when you present that licence. Are you obliged to present this information? No. Have you committed a crime? It's not free man of the land. This is how the commerce is meant to work with the consent. It's far too easy to understand by complicating it with free man of the land or too much legislation. If you bring in too much legislation, you might as well muddy the waters anyway.
Okay, gentlemen, I think that'll be a wrap, as they say.
Good man.
So it's good night from me.
And then
Debt Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.